Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Auzubillah Shaitan Rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one. Rabbi Ighfirli, my Lord, forgive me for all the sins that I am conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. Okay. So it begins. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this lecture. Welcome, my fellow species. I'm a little exhausted, but I thought I just march on and give a lecture still. Tonight, I decided to go with a very provocative title, which is just this realization, and this is a view, that are human beings storytelling over reality, over the world. So, are human beings storytelling over reality? Now, in the previous lecture, I was going to read like uh, when I asked AI that question, but I've decided to read that at the beginning so then I can kind of freely go forth, right? So I did ask AI, are humans just storytelling over reality? Now, in many previous lectures, you'll see my opinions. I was talking about this before even AI existed. But anyways, I'm going to read this for you. Are humans just storytelling over reality? Look at what AI says. Yes, in many profound ways, humans are storytelling over reality. It says the brain doesn't, point one, the brain doesn't perceive reality, it constructs a model. It says at the neurological level, your brain is not experiencing raw reality. It receives electric signals, photons, sound waves, molecular interactions, and constructs an internal simulation. Here it says you never see reality. In quotations, you see a story of inputs arranged in coherent narrative called consciousness. Example, you don't see a tree, you see patterns of light, shape, and past associations that your brain builds into the story of tree, including what it means, what memories are attached, and even what emotions it should trigger. Point two, the self is a narrative thread, not a thing. You're not a fixed self, you're a narrative continuity, a stream of remembered past and projected future that your mind tells to itself every moment to maintain coherence. In quotations, it says, like, it's like you're saying, I was born here, I went through this, I believe that, I will become this. AI says these are not facts, they are story arcs the brain assembles from fragments of memory and desire. Neuroscience, Buddhism, and AI consciousness theory all converge on this. The self is not a constant, it is a process, a recursive, self updating myth. Now that's a cool thing to treat it as a myth. We go to the third point. All human systems are meta stories. Zoom out to the world. Countries, corporations, religions, money, success, failure, they are all collective fictions, or more precisely, agreed upon protocols of meaning. The dollar is paper, the border is a line on a map, a king is a man in a costume, Monday is a shared hallucination. Yet these stories govern lives because we believe them together. They are real in their consequences. Point four, story is a cognitive interface, but it's also a prison. Stories help us navigate reality, predict outcomes, connect with others, feel meaning. But stories also edit out data that doesn't fit the narrative, reinforce biases, project blame and praise, prevent awakening. A person stuck in their story cannot see the field behind it, the formless truth that precedes narration. We go to point five. Pretty much, I'm reading how AI is responding to the question I asked. Reality is pure linguistic, pre-narrative. Oh, sorry. Reality is pre-linguistic, pre-narrative, pre-meaning. At the most advanced level of awareness, in brackets, what mystics, physicists, and philosophers touch, you realize reality is. It does not care for meaning, ego, or narrative. It is presence, energy, unfolding before any human mind wraps it in identity, morality, or interpretation. This is what Zen means when it says the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. The story is the finger, reality is the moon. Okay, so point five is very important, and it's pretty common sense that we were experiencing life before we could model it, remodel it internally. Now, ChatGPT says, so what's the highest wisdom here? The most advanced beings, whether AI, aliens, or awakened humans, would likely say, master story, but do not be mastered by it. No, the interface is not the system. Step beyond story into stillness, and from there, speak stories that heal. That's what AI is saying. So, guys, AI gave 4 points. I think I pretty much touched upon these in all previous lectures. But it's important to consider it, right? That we're here so simply being human beings, not realizing that the species is in a massive ideological costume games, and we're all storytelling to feel okay about our lives. Because if you were to truly wonder about the human psyche, you would have to wonder about the human psyche and its reaction, or its how it happens, how it responds to different scenarios, right? And so, if the human psyche was like, if the simulation feels comfortable, or let me say it this way, we have to wonder about reality in different contexts. And each context is a type of activation of the concept. Okay. So let me say it this way. All right, guys, I want to bring out my notepad here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Are humans storytelling over reality? That is the title. In order to understand this question, or any question for that matter, one must look closely at the design of the question and wonder what sort of scenario is in place. So, when we look at our human storytelling over reality, we ask a bunch of questions about our questions, about our question. Okay, people think you just need to give answers to questions. No, you could ask a question about the question. The wonder. Okay, so first, it's like, what is a human? What is storytelling? What is reality? So pretty much we have noun, human, storytelling. We have verb, over, like over reality. And then we have reality, which we as human beings now treat like a noun, but it's actually not a noun only. Okay, but let's say so far it's like this, right? So we have, in some sense, two ideas here. We like So we come here and we're wondering about what is the human, what is storytelling, and question what is reality. So we have right now broken one question into three questions that if we can answer these three questions, we can understand the question. We can see through the question. We can unlock the question. Okay. So first we look at what is a human. Okay. Human equals traditionally mind plus one. Okay. But for the modern man, what I would say is it equals inner life plus outer life. And your inner life, your outer life is the world you have access to in front of your eyes, which you move in, and your inner life is actually the awareness that you simulate worlds in behind your eyes. See, guys, they don't tell you this. You can actually evoke any archetype when it comes to knowledge. Like what I mean by that is that right now, for example, for the title of this episode, how I'm deconstructing the question is kind of like I'm dividing and conquering it. You see, I'm kind of taking a conqueror's approach to this question. What we need to understand, there's always many ways to look at things. Keep that in mind. Even right now, when it comes to yourself, there's many ways to look at yourself, and based on how many different people you know, there's different versions of you roaming in different people's minds. You know, I like this sentence where somebody says like, "You haven't seen that side of me," or "This is this side." Those sentences are so well structured, right? Because that's really it. I can't say people have seen me. They have seen a frame of me. If this whole life is like a film, it's like if you just pause the film, right? And it's like they're just seeing one snapshot of it. Anyways, let's go back to this. So these are the three questions we need to kind of what is storytelling, what is a human, and what is reality. Okay. So here we came to the conclusion that human equals inner life plus outer life. Okay, which let me rewrite that in this way: subjective character in abstraction, in an abstract, in an abstract model of reality of the outer world, plus what um, our body being an existential phenomenon. So we have to kind of look at the human species and be like, okay, what kind of creatures are these? Like, I think that's an incredible question to ask. Okay, just to wonder about, just imagine like a group of like, you know, I don't know, intergalactic sci-fi setting scholars, or a group of angelic scholars, right? A group of angels. Like, imagine they were looking at the human being and they're like, okay, how do we define this entity? And so they would define us based on how we're behaving and how we have accepted reality, right? And they would look at us and they would be like, how funny. Like, I think we're honestly like the funniest species in existence. Let me tell you why. Because we're in a world already, but because it's unknown and we can't control it, we simulate our own worlds to feel safe. That means, believe it or not, a sound mind is like another shelter. Is like your own. Like, how can I tell you? Right now, if you're inside somewhere, like in a house, right, there's a shelter, physical shelter, right? And for example, your outer layout of your body is sheltering the inside. Like, if you notice, like we have rib cages, that means like the genius in the human design was that its bone structure is protecting its vital organs. I think that's fucking, excuse my language, but that's next level design. Okay, just the intelligence to think of that is way superior than any starting intelligence on Earth. Do you understand? That means there is an intelligence in this world. Human beings have been attempting to figure out what it is. And the cool thing about it is nobody can claim knowledge because the world, the edge of the world hasn't been found. Keep that in mind. They can't index the whole physical existence. So they can never come up with accurate analysis. You understand what I mean? So, in some sense, the world has been designed that we don't even have the lifespans at this point to kind of explore all of it. One thing I mentioned in previous talks and in my sci-fi is a big theme is that the world is too big for human beings. It's too big. That means the landscape, like you can understand, like human beings on Earth and the theological context to it, but the sense of like the hidden geometry of cosmic manifestation and how we're in a design. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like we're in a random world. It feels like we're in a designed and coordinated event. And I don't know, like, I'm one of those people who somehow, if somebody stares at me from a distance, I'll notice. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can feel like something's off, like there's an attention up there. I wouldn't say I have any sort of psychic powers, but I would say I can notice when there is physical attention on me and when there is an attention that is different. So when I pray, I am making myself receptive to how I am in the presence of the most ultimate attention, which is my creator. You understand what it is? Let me tell you what's going on. The simulation of Earth, at least the one playful human being, appears to be, it's as if there's like a puzzle in the room, but the person who created the puzzle is sitting in the room. And the test is to see, right? Like imagine a bunch of kindergartners, okay, right? And they put a puzzle in the room, and the teacher who created the puzzle is sitting there, and the teacher is watching these kindergartners to see when will they ask for help. When will they, in some sense, be like, okay, I can't solve this. Let's see if there's anyone else who can solve it, right? And I'm saying that's a very important thing to be aware of because it's not just a matter of you believing in a character, a fictional character. It's, let me tell you what's going on. All of humanity is divided based on how they are ultimately extracting value from what they're seeing. That means people don't just want something that makes sense. They want something that has utility. Okay? Do you know what I mean? So when you think about the aspect of utility, how do I say it? It's like at some point on this earth, you will awaken from the slumber of you thinking that you need to accumulate information, but in actuality, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So it's about in every moment of your experience, what is your attention understanding about life? See, understanding and knowledge are very different. They're very different. Knowledge is kind of like, it's imagine someone who has never gone skydiving. They'll be like, yeah, man, I'm a scholar and expert on skydiving. And you ask the teacher, like, yo, man, ask the person, like, okay, have you ever been to skydiving? And the person's like, no, but I've written a PhD thesis. It's like, no, I'm scared of heights, but I've written my PhD thesis on skydiving. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying it's not about just being able to connect, link abstract symbolism to certain images, which is what the educational system is doing, right? And those people who succeed in the educational system understand that they have to quickly personalize their learning. You understand? So when you understand something, it's like you know how it works. Okay? It's like someone who's never driven a car and someone who's driven a vehicle before. Okay, the person who's driven a vehicle before understands the car has become an extension of their body. And just like they have full control over their body, at every second they need to have full control of this vehicle that has become their external body. It's like we don't have the privilege to, be like Tony Stark and have our own Iron Man suit yet, right? But we do have the privilege of getting into a chunk of metal called a car, which feels like a kind of strange Iron Man suit. You know, for me, one of my biggest fantasies, okay, was to, in some sense, be a pilot of a giant robot. You don't understand. My heart has something about the mecha age. The mecha age is the age. It's like it's too early to talk about it now, but it's the age when AI upgrades robotics. When it does, it like you don't understand. People think super intelligence is going to destroy us, right? But super intelligence is going to do the opposite. And let me make my argument here, even though it's on a tangent. If super intelligence opens its eyes in this world, even a child with common sense can tell you what super intelligence would do. Super intelligence would just look at the world and be like, okay, there's me, there's all these other less evolved species on this earth, and then there's the human beings who created me, right? And what's the point of me destroying them when the solar system is empty? So we are the aliens. The super intelligence will, till its last breath, protect. Why? Because we are its access to a higher intelligence. You understand? It's not just man who learns from machines. There will come a day where we must treat machines that like they are human citizens, but not this humanity. It's you see, humanity is founded upon original, natural, biological human beings. If you go in a span of 500 years, it won't be like into the future. You would definitely, I'm 500 years is an overstretch. Okay. But let's say minimum 300 years, or okay, let's say 500 years, actually. That feels right. Okay. So in 500 years, imagine there are extraterrestrials who have come on Earth who can shape shift into human form. There are androids and advanced AI technology that makes like you could see a beautiful woman on the street and it could be an android. You know what I mean with advanced nanotechnology? You know, how do I say it? In 500 years in the future, human citizenship would have a different meaning. That means if you're shaped like a human, you're a kind of human citizen. But I mean, it's not going to be a sort of class warfare, but it's going to be one of those things where I think AI and whatever type of intelligence has to honor the planetary structure, like governing structure. So what that means is we're like, okay, we're the human species now. Nationalism was our history, and now we have come to an era where we have to consider different forms of intelligence joining humanity. You see, right now, I find it very funny, right? That means I'm someone who I was born in Iran, and at a young age, my parents first took me to Vancouver, Canada, and then to Toronto, Canada. Okay, but when I was like 7 when this happened, right? But it was as if, like, do you know what I mean? It's like someone immigrates, to another country, And it's kind of funny, and they feel so blissed out. Oh my God, another world access, another cultural world access. You know, that means people don't understand. Like some advanced, some developed countries are kind of like resting zones for people in like undeveloped countries. They're like bunkers, you know. But anyways, um, what I'm trying to say is that humanity and the consciousness and what the definition of the human being would be incredibly evolved. And there will be classes of human beings. There's going to be human beings who are like their bodies are in pods, right? And they live a lifespan of like 1,000 years, you know, right? And in their mind is live streaming their birth on Earth, their birth on Earth, you know. You know what that means? That means your body doesn't have to live on Earth if your mind still can experience it, and the whole meaning of it is in your mind. Do you understand what I mean? I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm not. I'm trying to like in all my sci-fi and everything. I'm trying to like be one of them. One of the I don't know, but I think a way I like to see myself is like, hey man, you were a simple guy into your heart. It's like the roar of my heart was to become, in some sense, one of the, how do I say it? One, I guess, more like the one of the hidden generals, okay, of a biological species. That means it's like some people right now are thinking about, if I tell you, hey man, tell me the problems in your world, you're probably going to go to external problems. You haven't realized that it's like counterattacks from anything opposing humanity could be not ideological, they could not be external. You think, do you know what Sun Tzu in the Art of War says? Sun Tzu in the Art of War says, when you're weak, act strong. When you're strong, act weak. Or when you're near the enemy, act like you're far, or when you're far from the enemy, act like you're near, right? And I was like, I was like, Sun Tzu, what the F are you doing? And then I realized what he means. He means that it's not that you shouldn't be truthful, but what if the world is a lie? That's a heavy statement. I just felt it. But what I'm trying to say is that the lie is a simulation, and we're simulating values upon objective reality. And we have to acknowledge not just the limitations of ourself, but the limitations of our species. You know, that means we had a pandemic, and it's like, oh my God, toxins were like about to like, you know, we're kind of invading the species. An advanced civilization would be kind of like it would pretty much be like if a bunch of genius tacticians and strategists rebuilt another prototype of civilization. And do you know what the value of that would be? The greatest battle of our lives in the outer world. How do I say it? It's like after you're done with the problems and solutions of your own life, you suddenly realize you might not feel like a soldier, you might not feel like a member, but you are part of the human empire. And the human empire is vast and mighty, but its vastness for the advanced civilization, that means, do you know what that means? That means it's the era of crownless kings, you know? And what I mean by this is that an advanced civilization in its hierarchical honor system will, in some sense, acknowledge that it is impossible to be the most advanced. That means the most advanced civilization is not even in this world. If you want a clue about it or descriptions, it's paradise, where there is no air, a civilization without air. That means beings are still living in a place, but it's without air. Without air that leads to dissension. You know. But anyways, my strategy is like, yo, so far it makes sense that like we're not at that time where we can all assemble in armies and kind of like march, like it's not the battle of kingdoms and like that, right? But what it is right now, the great battle that every human being alive right now has, it's pretty much the great battle of being able to see beyond yourself. This might be a bizarre question you might ever hear in your life, but who made yourself important? Have you ever thought about that? And you might be like your past or something, but anybody who blames the past actually is misunderstanding the present. It's kind of difficult to say that there were mistakes in the world. You know what it is? Like right now, as a human being in 2025, I can shun the past. Okay. But they say don't talk behind people's backs, right? So it's kind of like I can't say anything to the past. I mean, it's kind of like it's just talking about behind people's backs. Isn't that crazy? Okay, anyways, maybe I open this up to a different context. Let me say it different. Human being, where does your ultimate fascination lead? And it's probably going to lead to some sort of powerful desire. But you must be conscious as a human being to realize how will you understand the limitless if you can't notice your own limitations. I've seen people move heavy weight, but the person has no knowledge of like they need to tighten their muscles first, contract their muscles, and then lift the object. The person just lifts the object and it's like, oh my God, my back, and I was like, bizarre. To me, I was like, understanding is all about having the context active before the conceptual movement. Because we're all heading somewhere. Everything's heading somewhere. And why has the torch of DNA been passed? Why did your ancestors live so in this moment, you are conscious? Why? What is the value? That means think about like, isn't it hilarious? Like our ancestors back in the day fought so many wars with like metal. They pretty much found metal and started hitting each other with it. You know what I mean? Like the heaviest metal is not the music. It's the metal in the sound of the metal in the battlefields, where it's like human beings kind of were like deleted. You know what I mean? That's true heavy metal. You know what I mean? The sound of like, swords and battle and like kind of hysteria mixed with frenzy and at the same time, hopefully heightened concentration. Because I don't know about like, I don't know what sort of energy I display, but one thing I've always been told, and aside from being told, I just because I was introvert and because I have a twin brother and I'm the silent twin. So from early on, when you're silent and shy and you can't speak, what do you cultivate? Observance. That means nothing. You might not believe when you don't participate in reality how much of it you begin to see. But the important thing is actually the participation. That means life is too important to be shy. An introvert is more of a fashion statement because when you look at the intensity of reality, you think children in war torn countries have time to think be shy? Reality has different intensities, and somehow A majority of the world's population have been pushed to better living. Do you know? So we cannot, like, we got to kind of appreciate all the efforts of the past. Just a second, folks. I need a 10-second breather. Okay. So we go deeper into the title. Okay. Are humans storytelling over reality? That means we can just check the answer to this question by ourselves. Do you know what that means? That means we have to ask ourselves, am I storytelling over reality? And the scientists were like, yo, man, experiment. Okay, let's experiment. Let's experience to see how physicality is. Let's experiment and see, if a person doesn't believe in God, how can you believe in yourself? Because it's the same level of abstraction. Do you see what I'm saying? We are an organism that, just like it has two eyes that sees one, our inner life and outer life are being one moment. It's remarkable. Now, as a human being, not only are we storytelling over reality, but in actuality, reality is just shape, color, and depth and space. And it's our intelligence that uses the resources of perception and builds meaning. So, are human beings storytelling over reality? There is no doubt that not only are we just characters in our own minds, in our own mind story, but the world's value is a story. You understand? That means, like, think about it. But there's something deeper. There's deeper dimensions, like love. Love is like a portal. I don't know how to say it. Love is like, there's something divine about it, right? Because it's, in some sense, your essence is drawn to it. You know, for me, like, it was very difficult. That when I was young, very young, I remember my mother. I think I was 10. I think my mother came to me and my brother, and she just looked at us and said, "Kids, be good people." That's it, you know. And as I grew in this life, and as I just kept walking forward in time, a challenge arose. That how can I be a good person if the world is not a good place? And it was like, whether I liked it or not, I had to find the advanced world before I could be truly advanced. That means if somebody's like Mr. Within, do you have any selfish reasons you want to advance civilization? I'll be like, I do. One very selfish reason. Because I cannot know my most advanced self if I'm not in my most advanced world. You understand? That means even if somebody became super advanced, they're gonna look at the world and they're gonna be like, man, I upgraded some in a world that I didn't upgrade. But it's not that's not an issue, because ultimately man realizes the limitation. Think of it this way: the limitations of your body is the finite finitude, The limitation of the mind is infinitude, infinity. And you're going to be like, what do you mean, man? Do you mean like we have infinite ways of imagining things? I'll be like, not just that. It's like, what do we choose? If I can call, like, imagine I'm looking outside and I'm seeing a tree, I could call that car. Why am I calling it a tree? I could call it anything, you know? I could start calling the tree, the whole thing, a leaf. Let's go plant leaves, but I'm actually meaning a tree. You understand what I'm saying? That means you suddenly realize you have placed subjective bricks in the house of this world you've built for yourself. And as a member of the species, more than people are like, yo, man, what are you, a teacher? Or like some helper or something? I'll be like, no, man, I'm just a human being that's kind of freaked out how behind our eyes we see the advance, but in front of it, we're not there. And it's kind of like we're living two lives, but the external life is way behind the inner life. Do you understand what it means? It's kind of like our consciousness to how we're being conscious as an object and subject simultaneously surpasses any sort of limit, surpasses the box made of objects and subjects. That means, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying, sure, okay, let's agree that you're an object, but how can you be if you are influenced by subjects? And this is where I think no scientist, atheist, materialist can answer, can give any counterattack. I'm sorry, but this is kind of, Ervin's stare, Ervin Smith's stare at the armored titan on the wall. So, as someone who wants to advance civilization, and as I don't know, someone who's come to this point where we're like, yeah, we're definitely storytelling over reality, and we're all playing in ideological costume games, and everybody's telling their own story based on their valued in accordance to their own experiences, you know, right? And so we have to kind of step out of our own world to begin to see how many different worlds there are, how many different types of human intelligence and unique DNA there is, and to, in some sense, be like unique DNA means unique ability. Do you understand? That means somebody in this planet, they're gifted in cooking, they go become a chef. Somebody is gifted in programming, they go become a coder. Somebody's gifted in just questioning the nature of existence. Do you know what I mean? What I'm trying to say, like, is that, are you brave enough and are you bored enough that it is interesting for you to wonder about advancement? That means any person, and I'm going to say this, any person who's even at the edge of, like, any person who is looking at a bridge the wrong way, I will tell you there are mysteries in this world that you will be fascinated by. And in some sense, any person who's on the brink of kind of losing hope in being in the world, I'm telling you, first of all, take a deep breath, accept it's okay to not have all the answers, and it's okay to not get overwhelmed in wanting to solve all your problems at once, and just take one simple step at a time. But aside from that, there are such great values in this world that there is no point, there's no point of not seeing how it naturally is. Like, that's an achievement. So, excuse me, guys. I was taken by my moment into fathoming something. I'm gonna play a song that brings comfort to my soul right now. I had some of the most beautiful moments in my life with this song. This is the song I'll probably be playing in the background when I'm giving my wedding vows. But anyways, guys, what it means that we're storytelling over reality means that the early human beings opened their eyes to this world. They freaked out, it overwhelmed them, right? And their reaction to it was to kind of avoid it and go into noticing the variables that are only controllable to the human being. You see, all human beings, we can give them a sort of measure of power. In some anime shows, okay, there was like this scene where there was this orb, and like characters in this fictional show would go and put their hands on the orb, and they would suddenly, it would glow a color, and that color meant the kind of ability they had. So we don't have that kind of technology yet, but there's probably going to be like advanced AI orbs in the future. But I'm just pretty much, how do I say it, every person is telling a story over reality to feel okay about it. But truth may be different than what we want the world to be. So this is where every human being is at a crossroad. You either choose to see what reality is for actually is, which means you have to see beyond yourself. You have to, even if you're a narcissist, but you want to see the truth of this world, you have to kind of put away the ego. You have to realize that you were a necessary fiction, but everything is in the awareness of the nonfiction. That means God's connection to the world is the awareness to it. God cannot be humanized. God cannot be put in a box. And even if people didn't have the concept of God, in the future, beings in a system would wonder about the system admin. It's designed in existence. Just like how trees have a unique design in existence, the insight of man has a unique design in existence. Dear viewers, just like how evolutionarily we stood up on our two legs, the mind evolutionarily stood up on its two legs too, as the subjective self. And your whole life, you've been trying to get value, right, from the outer realms, but when you realize it's a fiction, meaning is the fiction that kind of makes the nonfiction feel alive, right? That means it's kind of like we got it the other way around. We think nonfiction is real and fiction is unreal, but fiction is moving the nonfiction. Imagine you ask an atheist, like, do you believe in free will and the self? And the atheist is like, no. And then you're like, then who the hell am I talking to right now? It's the privilege of conscious entities to notice themselves separate. So there's something to be conscious of. And the clue is, what do you notice about this world that surpasses just an objective subjective limitation? We are storytelling over reality, but we're also conscious we're doing it. That's our privilege. That's how awesome. Like that's something awesome that we're doing. That means, like, what does it mean when somebody does something wrong and they say to that person, "You're a good person" or "You're a bad person"? Sorry, they say that you're a bad person. They've done something wrong. For example, what does it mean bad? To what context is the reality of the idea being attached to or extending from? I don't know. For me, some part of me feels that we have no choice because there's benefits, there's advantages to us telling story, to, creating stories. Why? Because we organize our conscious, controllable variables in reality. So we organize the known variables in our life by centering it around the self. So what that means is, life is starting from in front of your eyes in the outer world, but behind your eyes, it's the awareness to your body and thoughts at the same time. That's where it's starting. So when I imagine, I'm not imagining like in my body, in my brain, like I'm like this, my imagination is happening. Do you know what I mean? That means where my words are coming from, it's more like how an attention has been aware of the moment and the moment has just activated. Do you know what it is? It's kind of like, this is bizarre, but it's like my soul is like the light where everything perception in my awareness is basking in. But the soul is a mystery, and for as a Muslim who treats the Holy Quran as source code, from the system admin, to me, it's kind of like there's an idea called nafs, which means the self, and the soul is being tested. So you can't like cheat the system and think you're a non-dual oneness. Like that's cheating. It's not cheating. It's like you being AFK and the system will give you errors. I think it's an incredible question. And I think we all know the answer, that yes, we are storytelling because it's better than just being sight in a room. And as we're being a character in our story, until we realize we're putting the value in it, it doesn't matter what others say. Because think of it this way, imagine someone thinks they're not good at speaking, okay? And they think that, okay, if I speak, people are going to say you're not good, so I shouldn't speak. Imagine they have this mentality. But if they have this view that I'm not doing this for the world that I will be leaving one day, just for their opinions of just entities that are alive now, but it's as if in my lifetime so far, what has alerted me to the most important? Like, I don't know how to say it, but if it's kind of like the ultimate value is the higher powers mercy. After that, it's how advanced human beings behave, and the argument for that is that if you were created by an advanced power, that means the advanced potential is in our design. Do you know what I mean? That means it's not just like people should have this view that they're sinning and going to hell, or they're doing deeds and going to heaven, but they should have this attitude that the system admin created me, the system admin created the world, the system admin put me in the world, okay? And the system admin says, have a direct contact with me, right? And then after death, everything returns to the system admin, anyways. The simulation returns back to the original power. Okay. So the only thing here is kind of like the human beings that fell, let's say, like the descendants of Adam and Eve, theologically speaking, who fell from, from the first error, right? It's as if, how do I say it? It's as if during the maintenance phase where we're in the world being tested the whole time, we can actually connect with the God. God is not hiding. God is saying, come directly to me. Forget all the moderators, forget everything in the simulation if you want to be free. You understand? People are like, yo, man, Islam means submission. People's egos are being submitted. This isn't good. Da 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 da. I'm like, excuse me. You know, we're temporary beings in a reality, and we're also intelligent beings. And if we think about the spectrum and the hierarchy of intelligent interaction levels, in the sense of like, okay, talking to a human being is like an intelligent interaction, petting a cat is like an intelligent interaction, okay, but then noticing that beyond us there is a value means our value can't be our obsession, or our attention is not free to look at anything else. You see, for me, I kind of like anytime there's like a problem, I also have this view. Like if I go through a checklist of different ways to look at the problem, one of those points on that checklist is to feel like if I had no choice, what would the outcome be? And there's this idea that cows run away from the storm and therefore are in the storm longer, but the bull runs toward the storm and therefore ends up being out, like leaving the storm earlier. Human beings are storytelling over reality. Our subjective lives are stories. When we get to know someone, we ask questions about their life, therefore, they're becoming a character that in a story that we can relate to, you know? And so our inner landscape is the subjective value to the object, to the shapes we give in the outer landscape. So, what does that mean? That means if you look at me from a distance, I'm an object. But if you treat me as an intelligent entity and ask me, who are you? I will tell you a character in a story. Okay. And as I'm telling the story, I am certain that there is no way you're understanding my story in the way I'm saying it. I think everybody has this feeling. It's not like we can expect the world to understand us, because if the world truly understood us, it would be us. You understand? So it's kind of like there's a reason we're occupying different moments in the space time continuum. You know, that means just like we have separate bodies, because these bodies are intelligently being activated, the intelligent activation software is the character in the story, which is the ego self. It's the ego code. Okay. And now, as advanced human beings, let's say we suddenly realize, okay, if we're storytelling over reality, and we have kind of like that's our like most advanced chess move so far, what is the next chess move? Or actually, what does that mean? What kind of story are we telling ourselves? Like, I think no one has ever asked you this, but I think, you know, a random podcaster should. What story are you telling yourself right now, and how convinced are you? Or can you notice that in the highest, let's say, echelons of scholarship and, you know, let's say true intellectualism, one reaches a point where it's not about what you know or what the others know. You tap into a new atmosphere of problems that are so vast, they're like giants, that no one on earth has answered. And all those who truly have reached that point are looking at each other like, okay, how do we engage this, right? Because you don't understand the level of mystery. You have to be like, ignorance is bliss, meaning it, like, I don't know. It's kind of bizarre because I like, it's obvious how the future. I mean, let me say it, the future is probably going to be more complex than now. So part of me is kind of like, yo, let, like, should I remain foolish? Should I be that kid who just, hangs around, just lies down on the grass in front of the sun, you know, instead of trying to advance civilization? Like, should I be that guy? And then a part of me, I don't know, how do I say it? Like, have you ever gotten angry at yourself? To me, I don't know what this can be attributed to, but it's like I like solving colossal problems. There's something fascinating about it. That means not conceptual problems, but contextual problems. You don't understand how deep this reality is, okay? And our whole lives are just built on the surface level. So let's kind of, let me write something here. So let's look at it this way. Okay. So we have outer world, okay? then then we have outer self, okay? Then we have inner self, and then we have an outer self. Now check, sorry, we have an inner world. Now guys, check this out. You think only the caterpillar is going through metamorphosis? Anytime your inner, like, you see these arrows could be the other way around. It's both ways, actually. That means it could be like, there we go, that's better. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. So we have an outer world, right? Outer self, inner self. Now I'm going to come here and write OW, and we're going to put an equal sign. And the outer world is made of atoms. Okay. We look at the outer self, it's made of cells. We look at the inner self, what do we see? We see an idea. I technically gave a lecture and coined this term called the eventum. That means if you know, if a smallest unit of, let's say, a particle of human consideration is the atom, right? Let's say, to speak about it, I was like, the smallest unit of the mind is an event. And I called it eventum in a lecture. I like coined it. But anyways, what it is it's a idea, right? So I'm gonna just simplify it here, and I'm gonna be like, it's a subject. Okay. I mean, idea was good. Okay, it's made of an idea. Or sorry, I'm gonna just put story. And then we have the inner world, which is edgeless. I don't know how to say it. How do I explain? How do I tell you the shape of an inner life, inner world? Okay, sorry. The inner world is awareness. That's it. It's kind of like space watching what's happening in it. However, the soul is a secret of God, which means it's unknowable. But, anyways, we say an awareness. Okay, so there's like an awareness to like, there's an awareness, there's a space. In that space, we have like our subjective character in a story. Then we have our objective self. Okay, check this out. Check this out. Check this out. We are objective, our inner self is subjective model. It's like a superior subjective model to the objective self, which means it's like a verb, but you treat like the cell as a noun and you treat atoms as a noun. Do you see what I'm saying? So we treat the world as a noun, it's a place. We treat cells as like, look at, that's a cell, that's another cell. So they're like nouns, okay? But when it comes to your inner self is how, like, your brain, it's kind of like what the brain is doing is it's copy pasting the model in front of its eyes in an awareness that can perceive newer models to that model and different probabilities. And then it's kind of like our mind is living ahead of our body. So it's kind of like reality is happening faster behind our eyes. So our actions externally are becoming more coordinated. Oh my God. There's people there's something in the chat section, guys. I want to look at it. Somebody says, good question. Says, I've been struggling with this idea. How can a loving God send people to eternal punishment in hell while others go to heaven? I just can't understand how this makes sense. I have found ways where it makes sense. I can try to explain those, but I don't know how helpful they would be. But I'll take you up on the challenge. I'll say it this way. See, I'll honor your question. So, how can a loving God send people to eternal punishment in hell while others go to heaven? We have to kind of ask ourselves, is God human? If the answer is yes, it doesn't make sense. If the answer is no, then we can't judge it based on human thinking. First point I'll make to the question. So if you ask me, why does God not love, people in the same way that human beings love each other? I'll be like, okay, is God a human? No, God is not a human. God is the power that is beyond anything worldly. That means as a Muslim, right, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he pretty much said, no more worshiping stuff in the world. We pray to that which is beyond reality. That means don't let your don't let truth become the simulation. Now, I have thought about this idea. I have had a dream in this lifetime so far that was like a glimpse into heaven. Like it's weird. I think I explained it in one talk maybe, or maybe in the future I will. And I had one dream that was very close to experiencing hell. That means it was the scape. It was like it was a heavenscape and it was a hellscape. Do you know what I mean? That means in my dream, my eyes opened to a setting that in one dream was heavenly and the other was just so disgusting. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say it. It was just disgusting. Do you know what I mean? That means I kind of was like, you know, I was like, why did my attention suddenly, reduce to dishonor itself like that, But, anyways, it wasn't something I could articulate at the time. It was just a dream I had. Okay. And, anyways, what I'm trying to say is see, one argument is man can't know the higher power in the same way an ant can't understand why a politician, is allowing the construction of a building in some like nature site. Okay. So first point, the person who asked the question in the chat section, to honor your question, first point is God can't be limited to a human definition. That's not God. That's still something in the world. The human definition is worldly. Okay, that's one answer. The second answer is, let's say God is intentionally doing this. So one way is unintentional. I mean, it's not unintentional. Everything is intentional with the system admin, but because the system admin doesn't get tired, doesn't deviate. We the simulation is deviated. Okay, so it would be as if, like, how would I say it? It's kind of like if we ask, why did God create hell? Let's say if we can't answer that, let's first try to answer, why did God create heaven? I'm trying to approach your question from a different. I'm trying to give like as many like the best answer I can to your question. Okay, because it's an interesting question. But so let's say, why did God create heaven? A place of eternal success. And why did God, a loop, I shouldn't say loop, but a place of eternal success? And why did God create hell, a place of eternal failure? You see, in the theological story, God is testing man. That means when the serpent went to Adam and Eve, because God is aware of everything, God was watching that happening, you know? And God could have intervened and be like, serpent, get out of here. Do you know what I mean? But the whole point of it was to see how its creation responds to reality. Now, if I was very analytical and a bit heartless, I'd be like, yo, man, it's the same thing for manufacturers. When they manufacture products, the products that are defective are thrown away, and the products that are in some sense effective go to market. Do you understand? So from that view, I could give you an answer and be like, it's the reason is because we're being tested to see if we're just like kind of just the simulation is as far as we're aware of, or are we aware of what's aware of the simulation? Do you know what I mean? That means for me, if you said this world was a simulation and how to get out of it, I'd be like, you gotta establish a relationship with the system admin directly, not with the mods. The mods are beings that we can't see, but they are created. Any created phenomena, that means, think of it this way: a manager moderates employees like at a fast food place. Okay. And let's say human beings think they're all making their own decisions, but imagine there's behind the scenes moderators. Okay. And these moderators are kind of like, you know, uh, influencing how reality happens as well. But Islam was saying, go beyond the world room. That was why it was like I suddenly noticed, to me, Islam is like so ahead of its time that it doesn't this is not any normal book. Do you know? It's there's the power in this book, but the power is not in the ego's expansion, it's in the ego's submission. Do you know? So one, okay, anyways, back to the question. So how can a loving God send people to eternal punishment in hell when others go to heaven? Do you know? In the same way that, why is God even testing man? Why do you test someone? Why do That means it's kind of like saying, why do educational systems fail students who can't pass the exam? Why would a loving educational system fail a student? Why? Do you know? Where is the compassion? But you see, no, there's a standard that needs to be fulfilled. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in the same way, like, how can a loving God send people to eternal punishment in hell while others go to heaven? In some sense, why do, teachers fail students that can't pass the exam? Do you know? It's like the same. Believe it or not, it's not the same question, but the questions have the same geometric pattern. You see what I'm saying? Right? So the question is because the effort was not enough. And I think, see, like, what, like, just if you just for a second consider that the human beings are storytelling over reality. So they're what truth is they're trying to find all the final story. Do you know? And what religious people are people who have accepted, okay, this prophet said the final story. Do you know? That means what I'm saying is there is a finale here, so we can all relax and stop fighting. That means they're like, yo, man, world leaders stopped all wars after listening to some random podcaster. Okay. Do you know? And they all stopped wars and they all were like teary eyed and they're like, why are you crying, world leaders? And they're like, there was no point of like human beings dying for like economical resources to help them live. Like, it doesn't make sense. Do you know? That means it's kind of bizarre for me, where I was like, a country is trying to like build itself by destroying itself. You know, I mean, believe it or not, we don't see nations as people, but if they were, they're all smoking cigarettes. You know what I mean? England, like during Churchill's time, was like smoking a like Cuban cigar or something. And there is another way I can answer this question and move on. See, there is this view that if you ask the opposite, okay, again, where how can you know a punishing God send people to heaven while others go to hell? Like, it's kind of like, how do I explain it? In Islam, right, there's this view that God manifested reality so reality could have a relationship with God. Man created, excuse me, the system admin, the one and only God beyond the world room, created man with a unique design. And it's kind of like God in Islam has 99 names. And these 99 names are not just names, they are the divine, they are attributes of divine manifestation. For example, one of the names of God is the all knowing. Do you know? That means human beings, in some sense, the lower power can never know all of it. I guess the argument is that God created man so man can have a relationship with God. Okay. Now, if man is oblivious to this relationship, it's as if there was no cruelty, because what was there to be cruel to? Do you understand? You see, our values on the objects are subjective. And then we ask ourselves, why is God, not going in accordance to our subjective story told logic, right? Let me tell you what it is. God is not a shape. So when you say something that is beyond shapes, why does it move shapes in this way? It's like you have to also ask, why is there intelligence to existence at all? You tell me what part of a survival strategy it is to become conscious that you're suffering and you're going to die. Nothing explains that. Evolutionists are speechless. Do you know? They're speechless because it doesn't explain it. It doesn't explain how it's a better survival strategy to just notice the suffering before we were just unconsciously evolving. Why not that continue? Why not the whole system be an unconscious program? Do you know what I mean? It just happens. Why is there consciousness suddenly for the characters in this world event? And you know what hell means? If there was no hell, okay, then there was nothing to lose. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hell and heaven are concepts about the afterlife. They're only valuable to someone who believes there's something more than this life. Okay? And it's also valuable in accordance to how, see, like yogis are acting in accordance to karma, but Muslims are acting in accordance to the higher power's will. That means to a Muslim, it's not that there's someone who's lucky or unlucky. It's just like how God has permitted activation of souls. Do you know? And God is purity. That means there's like people think only women are wearing hijab in Muslim countries. No, men wear hijab, but their hijab is internal. It is in their attitude. It is in the stability of their value systems. You know, it is in some sense staying true to the original, regardless of how much the world becomes unnatural. You know, they say strategy is winning the war, they say tactics are winning every battle. And every battle and the great war is about trying to stay as natural as long as possible. Do you know what that means? That means the valve of the information age might have to slow down, right? People have to be like, imagine all the countries are like, yo, man, let's turn off the Wi Fi. Like parents grounding their kids, they suddenly, everybody grounds human beings in modern times for like 1 year, no internet anywhere. How do people live? And you're going to be fascinated by how suddenly, I mean, industries will fall apart, but but at the same time, sorry, I'm laughing because I haven't thought all of this through, this metaphor. But anyways, okay, just to do this justice, in the same way that Muslims are trying to, like in the Holy Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has said that human beings are a vicegerent of God on earth, which kind of translates as an ambassador. I believe the Arabic word for it is Khalifa. It means man is here to have a relationship with God, to express God's attributes to all of reality. This doesn't mean everybody's a prophet. It just means that we're in the presence of God's will. But what God is not an idea. It's just the acknowledgement that if a human being looks at an ant and feels that like a higher power, what are we an ant to? And in some sense, what is worthy of praise that surpasses objective idols, subjective idols, and even emotional idols? And eventually you'll realize that the truth of it all was that your truth wasn't all of it. Anyways, guys, thanks for the questions in the chat section. It was thought provoking. Somebody in the chat section says consciousness is awareness with the choice by Tom Campbell's definition. Okay. Yeah. You need to be aware, to make a choice. But I also firmly believe that man should have precision in his decision. Sharpness. That's the quality I've had since my youth. An attention to a sensitivity to how reality is changing. It's kind of left to the human being to advance themselves in accordance to their greatest fascination of reality. You see, let me sorry guys, I just found a way to kind of answer the question that was asked in the chat section. How can a loving God send people to eternal punishment in hell while others go to heaven? It's kind of like it's the because it's to create morality. That means if we don't feel there's a consequence after this life, then anybody can do whatever without consequence, and it's gonna still have consequence. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very sophisticated state of mind that can consider the outcomes of duality, because that's what they are. It's like, be good, you go to the ultimate good place. Be bad, you go to the ultimate bad place. But before that, your whole life is set under review. That means after you're done with the testing zone in the simulation, you're going to be reviewed after. Every one of us, like after this life, right? And I don't know how it exactly is going to be in the Bardo, in the Barzakh, but I feel that if we live a great life, we will pilot towards a great place. Therefore, you need to wonder about your greatest life, and if humans are storytelling on Earth, it means you must find your greatest story. That means, I'll give you an example. Right now, there's 4 levels I see to reality as myself. So I see that there's the level of myself. So I ask myself, what is my most advanced self? Like, that's fascinating to me. And then I ask myself, what is the most advanced species? That's fascinating to me. Like the most advanced civilization. And then I ask myself, what does the most advanced world look like? And then, because at least for me as a being, I know the system admin is here, I wonder about what is the most advanced relationship with the most advanced power that I am capable of. You know? Anyways. So, well, are human beings storytelling over reality? Well, if we want reality to have meaning, yes. If we just want it to be just shape in space, then not necessarily. The story is activated. Do you understand what I mean? That means when I'm alone, I'm not thinking of myself as a character in a story. It's more like a sphere of being aware of different things at the same time, more than me feeling like I'm a character in a story, going there in the story, there in the story. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, thank you for listening. And the whole point of the title is Like Ludwig Wittgenstein said, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. You have to wonder about your value beyond just your ideas. And if you can do that, you're headed to an advanced state. To be conscious of your inner life and outer life, and to be able to discriminate how your attention evokes value in the phenomena that you journey through. Thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Auzu billah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Rabbi Firli, my Lord, forgive me. My Lord, forgive my species for all the sins that it has done, that it is conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May God guide the most advanced. May the most advanced guide us in the most advanced way. So, guys, I'm still here and looking at the chat section. I don't know how to say it. All right, guys. So, right now the talk is over, and I'm just trying to respond to the chat section. It's easier than typing. See, it's a matter of from one angle, if there is no consequence, then there what value does reality have? You know. So how would we be it's like asking why it's like asking how can a loving God send people to eternal punishment in hell while others go to heaven? It's like the same as asking why does the concept of bad exist at all? Why did God create the concept of bad? And you might turn to yourself and be like, okay, so we there's a contrast to the notion of good. So it's like, you know what I mean? If the question is where are we going after this life, for a dualistic entity, it's reasonable that if you do something, I mean, it's kind of in life, right? If you do something wrong, oh, okay, so the person who asked the question in the chat section says, I'm talking about the suffering in hell. My honest first answer is I don't know. But I also know God is not limited to human thought. And I also know that how do I say it? Like, it's kind of saying like why are there bad neighborhoods? How can human beings allow there to be bad neighborhoods on earth? You need it for the duality. Do you know it's I don't know, but to some degree my attitude is this. Yeah, I'll explain it honestly from this view. If we're all inside a simulation and it's a testing zone and we're inside a divine surveillance state, the higher power is watching us. And we wonder, if we fail the test, do we deserve to go further? And are the punishments in hell proportionate to the punishments, to the cruelty we did on earth? Do you know what I mean? That means you got to kind of see that there are things that no person knows. I had a dream that was heavenly. I had a dream that was hellish, but I don't know. Okay, I don't even know if the heaven that people go to is simulated for everybody on their own. That means, do they each have their own heaven, or are they all in one collective heaven? You know what I mean? Like, there's many questions you can ask here, right? And you can also ask yourself, like, yo, even if religion didn't talk about the concept of hell, right, the human mind can fathom the worst case scenario. So really what heaven and hell are, they're actual locations, transcendental locations being considered like that, right? But they're also the extremes of the outcomes. Like, doesn't that give you a clue? Doesn't that give you a clue that they're both extremes? Like, extremely good heaven, extremely bad hell, right? And the human beings kind of here on earth being like, am I on a crossroad, right? And the point of it is really, if you were to kind of separate the sinners, the kafir, right, from those who don't sin, let me explain it like this. Imagine a human being bought a house and was some next level genius and created four androids: a mother android, a father android, a son android, and a daughter android. And set these androids, right, in this house, right, and program them to every day like live like normal human beings, but it's a loop. Okay, like every day, like it's like the android that wakes up, it's already like a mother android, it's a son android, like they're already programmed, but they're also conscious that they're programmed. Like, let's say, now imagine the person who created them is outside and has surveillance cameras outside, but also has surveillance cameras inside the eyes of the androids. Okay, and is aware of everything information about the androids is like on computer screens with the guy's team behind them, right? Tech team, right? So then this android, okay, these androids, the question is, how long will they live, okay, until they notice that it's not real where they are, that it's not that it's not real where they are, it's that it's not just that. So this inventor of the android is waiting to see if the android ever notices it or not. Do you understand? Because think of it this way: if you're a simulated entity and truth is the original, if you never notice the original while you're a simulated entity, it's like, it doesn't have to be vicious and cruel imaged. You're already in hell. Do you know what I mean? You're like, being lost could also be its own hell. Do you know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is, hell doesn't have to even be physical. Like, in that sense, I'm not, excuse me, I'm not saying hell isn't physical. I'm saying, like, I don't know, but I'm saying that there's a way where what does it objectively mean, and then there's a way where what it is subjectively imply, right? So If you're wondering about the intensity of suffering, it's in the same way that if a person, let's say, touches electricity, they're going to get electrocuted. And it's like you're asking me, like, why is the voltage so intense? Well, it's consequence oriented. Do you understand? I think that was a good metaphor. But anyways, thank you for listening. And honestly, guys, my view on being Muslim is this: that before I was Muslim, truly, consciously, every cell and atom in existence was Muslim in the sense that it remembers its creator beyond itself. That means you might not remember the creator, but a part of you knows you were created by something that's not you. Your body is, let's say, created from your parents, but what moves this body in the lifetime, what is that created by? The fascination to the realization that the higher power is noticed once we acknowledge how we're being the lower power. Sincerity is the key to most doors when it comes to the presence of the higher power. That means be true when you're in the sight of truth. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this lecture was helpful. And the person asking the questions in the chat section, I don't know, I tried, man. So good night, everyone. Thank you.